when you cut this thing and you sent it to, were you scared? Did this movie scare you, or did you think about it so differently you couldn't kind of see that audience look at it?
No. It scared me, man. It scared me. It scared me. Like and that's what I tell people.
That's awesome. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Scary Movie Project, the podcast where we talk about scary movies mostly, it's good, that kind of thing. I'm your host, Matt, and today is probably maybe my favorite episode we're going to do on this entire show. My favorite former co-host, Tara, is back for this as well. And
hey, peeps.
One of my favorite films of all time is the Blair Witch Project. And we're going to talk about that today, but not just between us, because Ed Sanchez, one of the directors of the film, is with us today. Ed, thank you very, very much for being here. This is, like I said, one of my favorite films of all time. I think Tara's a big fan. I am really glad you were here to talk about this with us. Say hello to everyone. I don't want to step on you and let everyone know what you're doing out there. So say hi.
Hey, hello, everybody. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm happy to chat about Blair Witch at any time. So Let's do it.
So the one thing that's kind of amazing to me is it's almost 25 years old now at this point, right? July of 1999. That's kind of insane.
Yes.
I was lucky I saw it in the theater. We're going to get into that stuff. But Terry, you want to go old school and we'll do one of these recaps on the film like we used to do back in the day here?
Sure. I got a short one though, because
okay.
I think if you're at this podcast, you probably know what happened in the Blair Witch Project.
Right.
So we all know the story. 3 film students head into the woods outside Burkittsville, Maryland, to film a documentary on the infamous Blair Witch. On their way to the sites associated with the legend, they get lost in the woods and disappear, leaving only their tapes behind. And as we watch the trio become more and more lost, the woods take on an eerier aspect, tensions rise, and strange things occur.
Mm-hmm. I love strange things, especially when they occur.
Yes.
Yes.
So what, July? This was released in July 5th, 7th, I can't remember, July of 99, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had heard buzz for quite a while. So this is one of these first on internet things, right? So I went to see it opening night. A bunch of my friends wanted to go. I'd seen the ads, I'd seen the commercials for it. And we went to go see it, and it was packed. There were a lot of people. And no one was really sure what we were going to get out of it because there wasn't too much information. I mean, you couldn't really go on social media back then. You couldn't find out a lot about it. But it started off there were some lighthearted moments, right? There were some kind of funny moments in the beginning where things were happening. I love the scene where the mother is being interviewed and the baby keeps trying to cover her mouth and stuff. It's little like omens almost of weird things that are going to happen.
Yeah.
And spooky stuff. And as time goes on and they start camping, things get not so funny anymore. And things kind of get pretty scary. And I mean, we can go over everything, but for me, it just, the tide slowly turned. And I remember someone had brought their little kid with them, and I realized that was the worst decision you ever made, probably. I don't know. By the end of that movie, I was silent. I had nothing to say. I couldn't move. I remember driving home and I had nothing to say. I was scared out of my mind. And because, again, I went to see this thing thinking this was true. I did not know the whole thing with this. You guys pulled it off perfectly. I don't think I slept that night. I think I was up all night loving this film because I just don't get scared anymore. And I don't know that anything has scared me in a film since then, since I saw this. And it has just been one of my favorite. I love it. I think it's genius. I think everything about it is perfect. I think Tara's story is different, though, right?
My story is so different. She
hated it.
No, I did not hate it, but I didn't have that opening night. I did not get to have that experience. My husband and I, he was, my boyfriend at the time. I was finishing out my senior year of college, and we discovered this. I can't remember exactly how, but we heard about it and we were looking at the website together. It became this whole thing for the two of us. We looked at the website and we kept going back and checking it to see updates. And we watched the documentary that you guys made for it.
I love it.
And, we were like, is this real? Oh my God, is this real? And then it was like right as I was getting ready to come back home to Maryland, because I was in school in Florida, and that's where I met my husband. And we were going to wait until he came up to visit to watch it together. Because I, at this point, was still deadly scared of watching horror movies. I was so scared of them, but I really wanted to see this one because even though I was scared of horror movies, I was very into the supernatural and ghosts and everything like that. So I think I went back down to visit him first, and we were talking, and his mom let slip that he had gone to see it with friends.
Uh-oh.
And I got so mad at him that I refused to go with him to see it after that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, it won't be the same because you won't be like seeing it for the first time. And so I didn't see it until my manager at the time got me an audition for Blair Witch 2. And I was like, oh God, I better watch Blair Witch now.
Yeah.
So that I know what's going on here. So I finally gave it and I watched it, and I watched it like midday, and it still scared me.
Yeah.
And the thing that stuck with me, though, of everything in it, and I'm going to ask about this later, the thing that stuck with me was when she finds the bundle with the little tooth wrapped up in Josh's flannel. Like,
the flannel. Somehow
that image just stuck with me for years and years and years. And my teeth freak me out now.
Yeah.
Like just the idea of like anything happening to your teeth is so gnarly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of got like, by the time I saw it, I knew it wasn't real. So I feel like I kind of got robbed of that like experience. And I give my husband crap about it constantly. Like every time it comes up,
But
I'm
you
like,
still married him though. That was
exactly.
I did. I still married him.
You knew what you were getting into.
But really, only so that I could give him crap about it for the rest of his life.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, isn't that why anyone gets married? So you can lord things over people until they're dead.
So. Pretty much.
Or until you are, whichever comes first. But yeah, so that was my experience with it. And, you know, of course I was supposed to be auditioning for the Goth Girl, which I think is so out of what I would normally play, but there you go. That's how I watched it. And then I ended up being an extra in Blair Witch 2 as a goth.
What scene was that in? Were you in?
Oh, it was when the park ranger is telling everybody to get out of there. And I just like run by with a video camera.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so that was my experience, was when I finally got to see it, was when I was getting ready to audition, and I was like, I knew, but it still scared me.
Yeah. Well,
it totally still got me.
I think that's cool because, I mean, I've seen it so many times since, and obviously you can't get the same experience, but it's still frightening because you know what it is for me? I had never seen anything like that, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't think I've seen a lot since. Yeah, there's that movie Wreck, and there's all these found footage, and they can do whatever, but this to me was just so unique. It was so unique in what you guys did, and I just hadn't seen anything like it. And it genuinely was, I mean, that scene when they come out of the tent that one night and the babies make crying behind or something. Like, seriously, that just messes me up. And like you said, finding the teeth in the bundle, and the whole thing is scary as it's like the walls are closing in on them, and they are just, you know, they're fighting with each other, and it's almost not even so much a witch. It's like, it's just they're trying to, you know, get at each other's throats, and it's just they're crumbling around each other when something horrible is happening instead of working together. And this sense of dread is coming, and you're just like, oh my God, what is going to happen to these people? And I mean, yeah, it has been one of my favorites since. But I mean, Ed, tell me what, you know, where did you guys come up with this? Tell me, what is the genesis of this? Because I got to know that.
I mean, it was early 90s, and Dan Myrick and I were in film school together, and we had gone to see this movie called Freddy's Dead, which was like a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And
that's right.
It wasn't very scary, and you know, we were just kind of hanging out, you know, poor, you know, starving film students. You know, you got no money, so you just hang out and kind of. We didn't even drink. You could just hang out and eat a little bit and just kind of watch movies and stuff. And we started talking about, you know, why there hadn't been any scary movies in a while, because the 80s, like, you know, the 70s were, I mean, there's always been scary movies, but there was 80s kind of took like the, you know, slasher kind of, you know, the makeup effects kind of took over. And those movies just never really like got down, you know, got into under our skins, like some stuff that we saw earlier, and started talking about the movies that really scared us. And we ended up in the, you know, agreeing on a bunch of movies, but also agreeing on this kind of little subgenre that happened in the 70s and early 80s, which was like these like fake documentaries.
Like Cannibal Holocaust.
Like Cannibal Holocaust, but
Great movie.
we'd never seen a Cannibal Holocaust, so that wasn't even included, but it was like Legend of Boggy Creek.
Oh yeah.
And you know, even this movie called Chariot of the Gods, which was about like aliens visiting the planet and everything. And then that's, especially that show In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy.
Yes, that's great.
You know, yeah, that was for us like really scary. And it was like, we're like, I wonder if you could do that, you know, to audiences, you know, now. So we kind of came up with the idea of like, there's a film crew and they go to somewhere in rural United States, and they to you know, to uncover something about some folklore, some evil kind of dark folklore that's existed in these woods. And then obviously they disappear, and then years later their footage is found, and you know, a documentary team like basically makes a documentary about this whole disappearance. So that was our idea, is like basically a documentary about filmmakers disappearing. And then, you know, we were going to have interviews with you know, parents and detectives, and you know, we're gonna have narration, and you know, we were gonna have people like examine the footage and find things in the audio, like, oh my god, if you play this backwards and play it at a certain frequency, you hear these whispers. And so, you know, just creepy stuff like that. And most of that stuff ended up in Curse of the Blair Witch. But as we went along to edit, we realized that mixing them wasn't working for us. It was like every time you'd cut away from Heather, Mike, and Josh, that you would lose kind of like the tension, and you were kind of like, get back to the footage. So we decided to like take all the footage out, like right before we ended all the documentary footage, right before we went into Sundance, and we just sent the movie as, you know, just the raw footage basically. And that was it. You know, we got into Sundance, and you know, the only thing that we, you know, because we were always like worried about like, okay, does the audience need to know something about, you know, this legend, because, you know, we're making it up. So, so basically we ended up with basically let's just put a little card at the beginning to explain the basics of the case, and then let the footage go. And, you know, you know, luckily it was effective, you know?
Yeah, it's effective.
So first of all, I'm interested to hear that the straight found footage was not the original concept, and that evolved in editing. I find that very interesting, because I think it can, like, things can very much change once you start to lay them out on your timeline and see how they work.
It's a completely, the editing process is like you're rebuilding the film. So it can become something completely different than what you originally envisioned, as it clearly did here. But as you're talking about this, that your original idea was sort of to see if you could, for lack of a better word, play this trick on people. What was that like? Like, to be the only people who knew?
Yeah, that's crazy.
When all these people think it's real. And I'm assuming it's a little bit like War of the Worlds when they did the radio play of it.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of panicked. Like, what was that like? Did you have to like watch your mouth and like not admit to people that it was real, or did you tell people if they asked? Or
no, I mean, I mean, like, it was crazy. I mean, first of all, when we did the movie, we realized, you know, we were fans of Orson Welles and the, you know, War of the Worlds, and you know, we realized that, you know, that's, you know, it's a kind of a dangerous thing to do that, you know what I mean? But, you know, we had seen it at other times in our lives. Like, remember that movie? There was a movie called Special Bulletin, which was about like in the 80s, during the nuclear war craze, like the kind of in the 80s, where it was basically like a nuclear bomb. Some terrorists had gotten a nuclear bomb, and they were holding some hostages on a boat. And the whole movie was like a newscast. Like, we broke in and I remember them having to say like, this is a work of fiction, you know, because of the world. So I was really aware of like, oh my God, you know, you can't fool the, you know, the public like that. So I think all of us, you know, we're kind of like, all right, look, we can never tell people that this is real, but let's just make it as real as possible so that like, you know, nothing in the movie betrays that it's not real. You know what I mean? And then if people find out later, then that's the way it is. And then when Artisan bought the movie, you know, they were like, we discussed this with them. They were like, no, we're going to release it as real. Like, you know, that was their strategy. And honestly, I was kind of scared because not, you know, there was a little bit of trepidation because we were afraid of the backlash. We're like, you know, people don't like to be fooled like this and, you know, whatever. But we were like, look, you know, they bought the movie and they seem to know what they're doing. So let's just go along with it. And, you know, and it was kind of cool, you know, seeing it, but they never forced us to lie. Like Dan and I did a bunch of interviews, like about the filmmaking of the movie. And we never, you know, we never lied about any of that stuff. So, you know, there was definitely, you could find out it was fake, but it was a little more difficult, you know, than it would be today. You know what I mean? And the internet was like, you know, just a small percentage of what it is now. And it wasn't, and it was enough to like, the internet was in a great place because it was perfect to like, you know, throw out a lot of disinformation, but there was no like, you know, there was no Wikipedia. I don't think was around. There was nothing. There was nothing to check.
No.
You know, what is it, Snopes or whatever? There was no, you know, so basically you could throw a lot of stuff out there.
Oh yeah.
And people would, you know, believe it. So, and also we weren't trying to do anything malicious. Like we weren't asking for money other than, you know, your ticket price. You know, we weren't asking for like, you know, we need money to investigate. You know, we weren't like running a scam. So it was just a marketing campaign that, you know, just worked.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think people ended up loving that you fooled them.
My God, of course.
Yeah, I mean, most people, yes. Yeah.
I wouldn't have had the same reaction to it if I hadn't known that. I mean, like I said, it's still, I could throw it on today and not know what the heck it is, and it would still scare me. But I mean, that was. Now, how did that work out with your actors after this was done? How did that work with getting them to keep their mouths shut? I guess at the same time, right?
Well, especially because didn't they say on IMDb that they were dead for a while?
I think so.
Exactly.
I'm not. You know, I think that I never checked it, but yeah, there was. I mean, I think for them. It was cool. It was fine. I think. I mean, you'd have to ask them. I think they were, you know, probably a little frustrated, but they understood. You know.
Yeah.
I think, and they went along with it, and you know, and you know, they had, you know, they were, you know, I think it turned out well for them. They got a lot of attention. And they got a lot of opportunities. And yeah, I just remember like, you know, Mike. I was hanging out with Mike on the first weekend that it opened at the Angelica, which was this little it's like an art house theater in New York, and it was like Wednesday. It was the first because it opened up at the Angelica exclusively, you know, worldwide exclusive for like Wednesday and Thursday, and then Friday it was going to about 13 or 15 other theaters like all over the United States, and there was, you know, a huge line to get in. All the shows were sold out. The whole like that week, the weekend, they just kept putting. I have a picture of like Saturday sold out, you know, awesome. Sunday sold out, you know, and they had it like on 2 or 3 screens. So it was, you know, and it was cool because we had like a little display of like artifacts from the case and stuff that we had one of our friends build.
Yep. Yep.
And I remember like sitting across and seeing the line like to get into the theater and across the street, and it was me and Mike and a couple other people, and Mike was like, my own, you know, hit movie, and I can't even go over there and like talk to the fans. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm sorry. And I mean, you know, I think so. I think they were a little bit frustrated, but you know, they definitely got enough press, I think, afterwards, and did the rounds and stuff. So you know, at least
I checked IMDb. I think they're all still working.
I've seen them all and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're all. I mean, I think they're all pretty happy. I mean, I think Mike is a counselor, like I think middle school counselor, and he really loves it, and he's really good at it, and he still does movies on the side. He was in a couple of movies that we were producing here locally. And then, and Josh, was an actor, director. I mean, he still is. And now he's kind of a Renaissance man. He's now like, remodeling old houses. Like he bought him and his wife bought like this compound in, upstate New York, I think. And he basically remodeled it. So he's like high end, like,
That's
historic, like it's like, he's just really talented. And I actually asked him a while ago, I was like, hey, do you want to come and, act in one of these movies, little cameo or do whatever. And, kind of just hanging out, whatever, and have fun. He's like, no, I'm not acting right now. I'm not acting. I'm kind of happy doing what I'm doing. And then, Heather, I rarely talk to. I just see her on Facebook, but she's kind of like become a bit of a guru, she's like kind of a spiritual leader. And she just like she's very like, spiritual, and she lives out in this rural area, and she grew pot for a while and has written some books and is just continuing her journey. But I don't think she's acting anymore, at least right now. But they were all, I mean, they're all super talented, and honestly, like the movie obviously wouldn't have happened without them. And they were part, it was such a collaborative movie, and they were such a huge part of it. And I hope they look back on it, with mostly, good memories, but we owe a lot to them. So
that actually brings up a question I wanted to ask, which is that how much of that characterization was you dictating to them what their characters were, and how much was just shaped by them? Because I know the script was not like an exact script,
it wasn't,
right?
There was no dialogue in the script. I mean, we gave, I mean, look, our whole thing was like, we want to make this as seamless as possible. We want it to seem like real footage. So that's why we were like, hey, can we use your real names? And then that way you don't have to like, because you know how there's some moments when you're like deep in it and all of a sudden you say the person's name instead of the character, and then you ruin, you know what I'm saying? You ruin a moment. So for us, it was like, there was no, your brain didn't even have to go to the character. It was all yourself. So, and we said that, look, basically beyond the the logistical kind of facts of like, you go to Montgomery College and you're in the TV radio, program, and you guys, Josh and Mike knew each other. Heather didn't know Mike, but she knew Josh, and you guys want to be filmmakers and whatever. And other than that, we were like, just everything else, fill in with your like real, as much of your real life as you can, as you comfortably can. So they, they kind of invented all that. But yeah, the script was like, I mean, it was a script. There was just no dialogue. So basically all the little beats in there were laid out. So we would like, we definitely gave them character direction, because we kind of led them to like, when Mike started really Mike started doubting Heather way before Josh, but then eventually Josh, just gives up on her. And we were kind of trying to like boost, Heather's, you're the leader, F these guys, a little bit of that. But then, and then later on, of course, like, holy shit, or with Heather, it was like a lot of like, I know exactly what I'm doing, this is fine, we're going to be good. And then slowly we kind of like pulled that away from her, like, oh shit, I think you're definitely lost. I can't believe you're going to do this. And Mike is, I feel bad for the guys and whatever, but, kind of like these moments of, and all of them. And then they weren't allowed, we kind of gave them these directions and these little directing notes that we would leave them like, 3 or 4 times a day, and in the woods, basically, and at pre-designated, locations.
She would leave them like written.
Yeah, we would. You remember the 35 millimeter little canisters
right?
in film?
Yeah.
We had one with H, M, and J, and then we would put
that
them.
Would be their notes, right?
Yeah, we had like a little crate, like a little like a milk crate with like a flag, like one of those bicycle flags with like an orange fluorescent flag on it, and we would tell them, they had GPS units, and they would say, all right, you got to be be at waypoint 4. It was already pre-programmed
Mhm.
by 3 o'clock. And we would give mostly Heather at the beginning. And then later, I think Mike started, or Josh started leading them. Like we would shift it up like it was in the story. And so they would get to the waypoint and they would be like, either look, you know, here's the scene, like very, very, you know, try to give them as much information without ruining the gag. Like for the Stickman Forest, it was like, come to this area and then look up. That was, you know, look up, you'll see some stuff. So they were kind of like, oh my God, what the hell am I going to see? So then and then these crates, we would have notes. We would also have like fresh batteries, you know, food, you know, and then they would leave their tapes. They would leave their, you know, drained batteries, film. Like if Josh had shot film, he would leave the film canister. And then we would basically give them whatever they needed. And then they sometimes would ask for stuff through the radio, and then we would like bring it to their basket. But we tried to like keep them completely isolated as much as possible, and kind of leading them by remote. And then, and, you know, keeping an eye on them. We were always like, there was always a base camp within like probably half a mile, you know, 3/4 of a mile as at most, probably less than that during the whole time. So, you know, we definitely we wanted to keep them safe, but that was how we did it. That's how we directed, and we gave them all the directions. And you know, fortunately, they were able to, you know, interpret those notes and actually give us. It was kind of amazing when we edited we watched the footage. We're like, man, they pretty much hit every single beat in the script. Like that was, you know,
what I wanted to know was,
like they hit every single beat in the script.
Yeah.
And then there was, you know, surprises, which, you know, we always expected there to be surprises. So that was like amazing, seeing those like the beats that we didn't script that they kind of invented. And that was like, you know, we were actually an audience member during those moments, you know, because you're seeing this for the very first time, just like the audience can see it. So
can you give us an example of something that just like came out of nowhere that you were like, I never expected this, and it's amazing?
The biggest one was the map, you know, him throwing the map, because I
kicked that fucking map in the creek.
So we had, we had this map, and it was useless because, you know, obviously we were, you know, pushing them around, and we were zigzagging them around. And the Seneca Creek Park is only 2 square miles. They were never, you know, in fact, one night, like they actually reached the location. We hadn't prepared the tent or anything. We were like behind, it was raining, and we were getting our asses kicked on the logistical side production. And they couldn't reach us on the radio. So they walked. We had like safety things. Like if you're at this place, walk east. So they walked east, and they ended up at somebody's house. So, you know, and knocked on the door. Hey, we're shooting a movie. We need to use your phone, you know? So we always had that safety thing concern, but yeah, they were kind of, you know, we just kind of manipulated them in this area, and we played the Blair Witch, and, you know, luckily we didn't kill anybody.
Yeah, exactly. That was my question too, was did you get what you wanted out of them? And so, was it just old, like the high 8 Sony cams, and someone had a 16 millimeter film camera, right?
Well, yeah, because there was color and black and white. And I was going to ask that too. Like, was that an intentional choice to do both, or were those just the cameras you could get?
No, it wasn't. I mean, it was like the movie was supposed to take place in 1994. So we were like, you know, what cameras would, you know, a film student in 1994 use? And the CP16 was something that we had in film school at UCF. This is, you know, and so basically, if you were shooting a documentary in the 90s, you know, to be taken seriously, you had to shoot film. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and if in fact, like, you know, Sundance would only accept movies, you know, in film. Like you had to actually have a print made if you shot your movie on video. So I was like, all right, she would shoot it. She wouldn't have any money, so she would shoot it in black and white. It's a creepy, you know, horror documentary anyway, so that would work aesthetically. She would do that. And then she would probably have a couple of, you know, a camera that she has just to do behind the scenes for her project. So, you know, it was just 1994. What camera would they have? Well, they would have a high 8 camera. That's what, you know, what they would probably use. That was kind of like cutting edge in the early 90s.
Did you have to teach them how to use them?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Especially the film camera. You know, Josh, he knew something about production, but we taught him how to load the camera. And, Neil, our DP, would like load the magazines and then put them, he would preload the magazines, tape them all up, and then put them in the basket. And then so Josh, all he had to do was put the magazine onto the film camera, and then threading the camera is the big thing. And so we taught him that. Neil kind of did like a little mini film school right before we started shooting and taught him that. And then once the magazine was done, he would just take the magazine off, put it back in the basket, and we would take it out and we would unload it and all that stuff. Because you have to do that in a like a dark bag kind of. So you have to have a little, you have to be practiced to do that. So Neil would do that. And then the tapes, they would just shoot tapes and then leave them when they were done. And, that was kind of the process. We would just collect the tapes and
that's a lot
watch as much
hope
as possible. No, but real quick, back to that Mike moment. Real quick, the finding the map was, I forgot to finish the answering the question, but like, so Mike kicked the map into the wood, it was like fighting. He kicked it and nobody saw him. Heather and Josh didn't see him. So he kind of kept that information like, oh my God, when should I tell these people? And he was like right there, like there's some scenes now where you see, Heather and Josh arguing about the map, and Mike's just sitting there like knowing that he kicked the map into the creek.
Yeah.
So he was like, I gotta, figure out a good time to like, unleash this. And he unleashed it, and they were not expecting it, and they were blindsided by it. And
it was so good.
She was so mad. Oh my God,
she was crazy. And then so when we watched it back, we were like, that was like raw.
It's real.
And real, and to us it was completely unscripted. So for it was one of the times where we were like, this is the way the audience is going to experience it. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Exactly. That's when it's like, this is getting scary. Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, it was so well done.
It's just
like,
classic.
That's when that turn happened in the theater, and you're sitting and you're like, these funny moments aren't happening anymore. This is not funny. This is really, really scary.
Yeah, well,
this is really scary.
They start turning on each other. And that's when it starts. That's when the biggest enemy is themselves. So it's
exactly.
It was cool. Exactly. I mean, and again, like they were the actors were. They were ready to do that. Like they were, they let themselves go to those places, and it's like they were, especially Heather, like just really brave, like being the only woman. It was mostly guys on the team, and there's my wife or my. She was there, and I think Dan's girlfriend was there, and so we had a couple of women, but it was mostly just dudes, and just the idea of her not really knowing us and coming down from New York with these two actors that she doesn't know, and these directors that she doesn't know, and this production crew, and then going to the woods, be left alone with two guys in a tent, like. That took some, that took some gusto or whatever. I mean, she's
she must have really believed in the project.
I mean, luckily, yes. I think everybody believed in it. We were, and I think they were, and Tara, you being an actress, like, like this is a rare opportunity to do an improv film, like that's kind of an exciting thing. So I think they were, we got a lot of enthusiasm when we auditioned. Like we auditioned like hundreds of people that we didn't expect to get even 50 people to audition. So the kind of the whole improv feature film, I think brought in a lot of really great, talented people. So, and luckily we found the best three.
You did. You found really good people for it.
You put a lot of trust into these people, and it paid off big time. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it was exactly, we trusted them and they trusted us. So it was very much, it was that kind of shoot. It had to be,
So one thing I want to highlight and maybe dig into a little bit is, as you've been talking to us just now and telling us like about leaving things for them and about having to leave them food and make sure you had reels for them and, and all this stuff as a filmmaker, making small short films and knowing how much pre-production and how much effort all the production and coordination of that takes just for a short film, for a few days of filming on a set, right? Where you can go to run to Target and grab something if you forget it.
Yeah.
I'm in awe of how much
Yeah.
how much preparation and how much coordination you guys must have had to do. And I'm curious how big your crew was with all that. Or was it just like a few of you handling all that?
It was, me and Dan, the co-directors, and then Greg Hale, the producer / third director. And then Ben Rock was the production designer. Rick Marino was the art director. Neil was the DP. Wondering if, and I think that's all the full-time staff we had.
Wow.
And how long was pre-production?
Pre-production was, a year and a half.
Okay.
I mean, it was,
okay.
Wow. Just kind of, especially the casting, but then once we got in the woods, we had the luxury of, we used Steph, my girlfriend, now my wife, Steph had a townhouse in Germantown, which was like right around the corner from Seneca Creek State Park. So we used that as like the production office. So we would take trips up to Maryland, and I lived in Maryland, so Dan would come to Maryland and Greg came a couple times just to scout and kind of figure out what we needed to do and this and that or whatever. But I don't know how long the prep was. Probably a couple of weeks, 3 weeks. Like we were just there, and we didn't pay ourselves, so we were just kind of like doing as much work as possible. And then Rob Cowie was with the other producer. I think he came down for a little while, but he was more of like the administrative, like trying to figure out. Like he got us access to the state parks, which at a certain point they told us we couldn't stay there overnight. And we were like, well, how are we going to shoot those overnight scenes? We're going to have to. And they were like, well, there's no overnight camping left, allowed at the camp. It's a state thing or whatever. And so Rob knew somebody, politically, and the guy was, somebody reached out and they were like, let them shoot. They're, doing this movie, and let them make this movie. And then, we had like a lot of help from just friends of mine, Lonnie Glarum and Stephanie, my girlfriend, her sister Carolyn helped. We had people coming from MC that helped a little bit, but a lot of people kind of came and went. But full time, it was only like 5 or 6 people full time. So it was hard. It was 24 hours a day of like shooting, and managing the actors, and our main thing was like, let's not kill these people. And Greg, Greg really. Hale, really my producer, our producer, really like was the one that kind of logistically led, like made it possible to like do it that way, like to do that. He spent some time in the military and learned a lot about like GPS stuff, and like he came up with the idea of like, let's just leave the actors out there, the whole time, and it was just really solid. We had a really great crew, and people worked their asses off as always. And that was, that's it. But yeah, it was just 8 or 9 days of shooting, and then a couple of weeks of prep, and then, just a lot of planning, as you know.
And you continued working with Greg and Robin after that, because I think they were both involved in Lovely Molly when I worked on that with you.
Yeah.
So were they with you just kind of from then on?
Yeah, Greg's been with me the whole time, and then Rob was still in Haxon for a while, and then he left about 10 years ago, maybe. Dan, it was 5 of us. There was also Mike Manella, who was like a Florida guy, and he helped us with a lot of the editing and the website and a lot of stuff after we were doing post. But yeah, we hung out for a while in Haxon, and then for various reasons, people, went off, did their own thing. And so now it's just Greg and I are the only ones that are like left from the original Haxon crew, that are still working together.
So cool. Any good Blair Witch fan like myself has been to Burkittsville and has been to all the places where you shot this. Was there any particular reason why Burkittsville, why Seneca? Were these places you picked to shoot just because of out of convenience or what? Anything like that?
It was, well, the Seneca Creek was just convenience. Like we were like, we knew we had to be in some kind of state park. We had toyed with the idea of like private land, but we couldn't find enough, like we needed a lot of space. And so we thought, Seneca Creek was good. We asked permission. They were like, yeah, you could shoot there. It's pretty easy. It's like a state park or whatever. And they, they wanted to be friendly to student filmmakers and all that stuff. But then once they, and it's like I said, once they knew we had to shoot there at night, it was a different story, and we almost like had to do it illegally. But luckily they let us go in there. And then so Seneca Creek made the most, sense because of it had a lot of different terrains and had a different looks of the woods. There was so we wanted to have it, make it look bigger than it was. And honestly, it was like a couple of miles from Steph's townhouse, which we knew we were going to have to use as the production office. So that made it a kind of easy choice, and it just worked out really well. And then the house at the end was in Patapsco State Park,
which is gone now, I think, right? Unfortunately,
it's gone now. So we had to, for that last scene, we had to transport them over there. But then Burkittsville, we chose Burkittsville because it was like Dan and I were driving around, just Frederick County, and kind of looking to see like what town was going to be like our model for the, because we knew we had all this, history, all this mythology, like folklore, like, okay, whatever town it is, it used to be called Blair, and then they, the Blair Witch happened and everybody died and they abandoned the town. And then like, whatever years later, somebody decided, hey, let's start a new town here and let's call it something else other than Blair. And, and the town's cursed, it's kind of the story. So we were like just driving around, and we went, Brunswick, and we went to every little town, in Frederick County and some in Montgomery County. And then we were coming over this hill, and we saw like Burkittsville, like there's this very scenic kind of angle on Burkittsville where like the town is there, and there's, the church steeple, and you see the cemetery, and then behind it is the mountain, is the mountains, like it's not huge mountains, but it's, looks cool. So we were like, all right, this is it. This looks great, and then we drove up and it said Burkittsville, established like 1825, I think. So we're like, that's perfect. The town, the curse happened in the late 1700s. It was abandoned for 50 years. And then this is what, so then Dan and I kind of, we built all the backstory and all the folklore along with the team, based on that. And then the rest is history. And honestly, like if we had known that the movie was going to be like such a crazy thing, we would have definitely like just used Burkittsville, but then used like a different, like a fictional name, because, they were like, hounded for a while, and it took them a while to kind of come around,
like you said.
We didn't know. We felt bad. Their signs were stolen, and we bought them new signs, and then those were stolen. Geez. And so
they've changed them a lot since then,
but now, a couple of weeks ago, we actually had the first screening of Blair Witch in Burkittsville, and so it was kind of amazing.
So
saw that. I didn't even know about it. I didn't even know about it until like a couple days later. I thought, I missed
it was
this.
Amazing. It was cool. There was a lot of people there, and they had like a food truck. It was good. I never thought I'd see the day we're watching Blair Witch Project in the vicinity of Burkittsville.
It's so cool.
Hopefully that happens again.
In Burkittsville, though, when you were there, were the Burkittsville townspeople that you interviewed actually just people who lived there that you pulled, or did you bring in actors for those roles?
You guys shot most of that stuff in other towns, though, right? Burkittsville only has one or two scenes,
Okay.
right?
The only thing we
away.
shot was cemetery and driving away, and then we shot.
Okay.
Brunswick was one.
We
place,
shot Brunswick,
right?
like the woman with the babe with the kid is Brunswick, and then
So these were all actors that you hired?
No. Some of them were actors, like the older guy in the town in the like convenience store that talks about Rustin Parr. He was a guy that we hired.
And I think the woman who's a little loopy who comes out of her house,
her?
right?
Yes.
Mary Brown was somebody we hired. Yeah.
She was amazing.
Yeah, no, she was great, man. And but then things like the woman with the baby, that was totally like just somebody who
Baby,
wanted to help
no,
out
no, no.
yeah, she was there.
That was
And now
hilarious.
they're like a regular part
Uh,
of the Blair Witch, gang up here in Maryland. Like, it's like
Oh,
they were there at the the screening in
so
Burkittsville.
cool.
And
oh my
Ingrid, the
God.
little
So he
girl,
must be like a full adult
she's
out of college and
yeah,
everything now.
she's
Oh,
married
wow.
She,
and
she.
Yeah.
has she's like she's
Oh
a
my God.
psychologist, or and
Oh,
That's
she's a
amazing.
that's
full
so
grown woman.
cute.
So yeah, it's cool. I mean, and it's
Wow.
cool that they both kind of still hang out and do our little events.
That's
What
awesome.
about the two guys in the creek? You're
The
crazy.
fishermen,
You're full. You don't know what the hell you're talking about, man.
those
Those two were great.
those were great. Those were great. Like that was Ed Swanson and Bob
Yeah.
Griffin, and Bob passed a few years ago. And Ed is the younger one. Still comes. He was also at the Blair Witch anniversary. He's local. He was a guy I played softball with, and just was like the coolest guy ever. And I was like, in my casting, like we were having trouble with actors, like trained actors, because it's not really acting. It's it's like it's improvisation, but
Mm-hmm.
you're not. We want you to
Yeah.
play yourself. We don't want a fake accent. And a lot of people, we actually did plant one particular woman who just did not work. Like she just, the performance was, and we had to cut it out of the movie. But otherwise, they all worked out really well. So I wanted to kind of untrain people. And I mean, and Bob Griffith and Ed Swanson they just did an amazing job. We couldn't have, we didn't believe that scene when we were like done with it. We're like, oh my God. And we set those things up, Bob in his directing notes, because we would give like the way that worked was that we would give them, I guess through emails. AOL was around, so you could email things, but we would basically just send the actors, Bob and Ed, we'd send them, I would write up like a 1-page just description of what you need to learn, and then I would tell them, don't memorize any of this stuff, but just because it has to be something where you're like kind of remembering, and the details don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But basically for Bob, this is what you saw. That's why when he's saying it, he's kind of making it up as he goes along, and it adds to the the genuine feeling of it. And then I told Ed, I'm like, dude, you've heard this shit a million times. It's a bunch of bullshit. You love your father-in-law, but he's a fool, and he's always drinking a little too much all the time. So that was kind of like the whole thing, and we just let them. They didn't even know each other, and we just kind of let them. I trusted that the combo of them was going to work. And luckily it did.
They were great. Yeah, that was so good.
They were awesome.
When you were so this is something that when you think of a project and you're working on something, you see it in a certain way, and you're looking at it from object. It's hard to look at it as like an audience, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. When you cut this thing and you sent it to, were you scared? Did this movie scare you, or did you think about it so differently you couldn't kind of see that audience look at it?
No. It scared me, man. It scared me. It scared me. Like and that's what I tell people.
That's awesome.
That's what I tell people. Like, a lot of people are like, it didn't scare me. I'm like, well, how did you see it? Because that has a lot to do with any movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, like if you're willing to try again, watch the movie, late at night in the dark by yourself, not on it doesn't have to be a big screen, and just turn it up and just watch it and see if it freaks you out. But it has to be dark. You have to be alone and see if it's, and whatever. So
it still got me during the day.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it still does. Yeah. So, I was, and I've told a story a million times, but like, I was editing we would do shifts. Dan would edit during the day, and then I would take over like after dinner and edit till, 1 or 2 in the morning, and then come back and I would work on the website. I didn't have a girlfriend at the time. Steph and I broke up for a little while. So I had a lot of time on my hands. And so I would edit at night, and I remember it was like 1 in the morning, and we were in this, it was kind of creepy house but it was Orlando, downtown Orlando. It's like there's no upstairs and downstairs, so there's no creepy cellar, but it still had a kind of a creepy vibe to it. But anyway, I was alone and I was editing, and I'm just like editing, going along, and and editing the house scene and just kind of doing match cuts and like going from the film to the, and just kind of really thinking, just being a real filmmaker. And then I was like, all right, let me see what I did. And then I sit there and I play it, and just something started like just creeping me out. And like, I started feeling like somebody was watching me, and within 2 minutes I was running toward my car.
You know,
like,
you
not
did
running,
it when
but,
you get
but
yourself.
like fast walking to my car.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no, I mean, it was something about that house too. Like, I felt when we were shooting, not that I felt anything supernatural, but I felt really afraid in that house. And I remember one time we were scouting, and they left. I somehow was in a cellar, and I was looking and trying to figure out what the hell we were going to do, this and that. And then I realized that nobody was around anymore. And I was like, oh my God, I'm alone in this house. The sun was going down. So I like just ran out, and, everybody was down the road. But it was that house scene, like, just really got to me, and I had to flee, literally.
Get out, Amityville Horror. So here's a down and dirty text on this one. What did you cut this film on? What did you use?
We started on a Avid. My partner,
that was my
partner Dan was
Avid
like,
MC Express.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, it was the full-on Avid.
No,
it was the full.
Nice.
Because MC Express was like the cheaper version, right? That came later. No, we had
That's
the
what
real
I
one.
Used.
Yeah, we had the real one, man. It
nice.
was ridiculously expensive, and
thousands and thousands.
Oh my God, it was so crazy. And then but we were doing. My partner Dan was doing videos, like doing corporate videos, and that's how he was making a living. So we could pay for it for a little while, and then eventually we're like, man, this is too crazy. So we bought some Macs and started doing a Media 100. So we finished the movie in Media 100, and it's there. I mean, Avid is definitely more solid, but we made the best of the Media 100, and it didn't. I mean, it still cost a crazy amount of money, but wasn't like the Avid money.
So expensive back then.
Yeah.
So I have a looking forward question from looking forward from Blair Witch, which is, you have made several movies since then, several great movies, right? Seventh Moon, which I think we already talked about with you.
We did. That was good.
Exists, Altered, Lovely Molly. You've done a lot of TV work. You've done a lot of directing since then. So how did that first project affect the director who you are today? Like, do you still use techniques that you learned on that set? Like, how's that made you the director you are today?
I mean, the thing is that like there was a pre-Blair and after Blair. Like pre-Blair, I had done 2 features. I was really ambitious in my younger days, and I shot this was like in the late 80s. So I shot a movie on VHS because that was kind of all we had, and this is before, digital video. So, and it was more of an exercise. So I wrote and directed and edited this feature as kind of like a class project from people from MC. And then it was it was kind of a goofy movie, but we did it, and it was like, oh my God, we finished the feature. So it was like this big moment, and you're like, at least you kind of went through it and got through it and finished it. And then I did another movie a few years later called Gabriel's Dream. Then that one we shot on film. I had been to film school, and my plan was go to film school and then write a movie and then shoot it that summer. And we did it. And, it was, I mean, I wouldn't say it was a great movie. I wouldn't say it was a good movie. It was kind of, there were some good moments in the movie. It's just 20-year-old me, messing around. But it taught me a lot. And then Blair Witch came. Blair Witch was kind of like my last hurrah. Like it was late 20s, and I was like, all right, if this doesn't happen, then, and also we knew we were like, this is the best idea we've ever had. So if this doesn't work,
it's pretty good.
We're done. Like if this doesn't work for us, and then Blair Witch came along, and what Blair Witch taught me was that, that filmmaking is true collaboration. Like you have to
That's right.
let go. And like, you know, I think that when I was younger, there's this level of like, I'm the man, and, you know, I want to be Steven Spielberg, I want to be Spike Lee, and, you know, Robert Rodriguez did it, and this and that. And it is, you know, film is, you know, driven by, you know, sometimes a singular, you know, person. But films you can't make without a lot of talented people around you, you know, like never, like none of those people made those movies alone. And, and it wasn't just like, oh, can you help me, you know, do sound on my film? It's more like hire the people, and then, trust that you are hiring the right people to bring your vision to mind, and not like, you know, always, you know, let other people do your work, but don't micromanage. You know, that's the main thing that I learned. Like, and in my other films, there was this level of like, you know, always thinking that you're right and kind of being stubborn, and like sometimes, you know, you never know where the good idea is going to come from. And you know, you, especially acting wise, like if you've hired the right people, then let them bring, you know, what they want to, you know, you know, let them collaborate with it, and let them guide the character, you know, and let them, you know, give them a little bit of guidance as far as like what you need the character to do, but let the actor create it, and, you know, give them that freedom. And Blair Witch taught me that like the best, sometimes being a good director means like just stepping back and letting the crew and the actors do their jobs. And on television, that's, you know, it's a complete, you know, it's served me very well, because TV is, you know, it's a lot more independent. Like, you know, they need a director, but they really could, you know, the whole system is made to operate even without a director, you know, because they have to get this, you know, that's why you know, there's never in network history, oh, that they just couldn't finish that episode, you know, it just didn't work.
Yeah.
Or, you know, no, I mean, somebody will step in and finish the episode and do it. You know what I'm saying? It might not be good, but
yeah.
And you know, so there are guardrails in television, but so you can step away a lot more, but also it just makes like the moments where you kind of, you know, go in there and do your thing just better. You know what I mean? Because like they, you know, people respect you more when you've kind of given them a little bit of direction and a little motivation, and then let them, you know, bring the good work to you, you know. And so that's the main thing that Blair Witch taught me, is the idea that, like, you know, you're part of a team. And obviously, you know, you can't just say, oh, you know, hire anybody. Like, you know, if you, again, especially actors, like if you hire the right actors, you've made the right choices, they're going to hopefully bring something to the role and to scenes and improv. And they're going to bring so many things that you'd never come up with, like really good things, you know, and that can come from any department, you know, and, you know, just collaboration is the big thing that I've learned.
I have one. That's wonderful. I have one last question that I want to ask, and that is, you guys created a universe. You created a folklore. You created a legend that I think is amazing, and you made a film with it, and it was groundbreaking, and it made a million things, and I'm sure it changed who you are and what you did. When you look back at, I know, 25 years almost, what do you feel about that now? How does that movie now make you feel?
I mean, it makes, you know, there's never a day that I don't think about that movie, or like it, you know, it's affected everything of my life, you know, like you know, I was in my late 20s when we did it, and I was 30 when they released it, and I had never, you know, had never had any kind of money. My credit was in the toilet. The idea of like buying a house was, you know, preposterous. And, so all of a sudden you're like, you get a little bit of money, and you know, you're a filmmaker, and, you know, so it gave me a life. I was able to get married and buy a house and buy a car I actually fit in, you know, and, you know, just kind of stuff that like most people at, you know, 30 are taking for granted, at least the, you know, people around me. And then, you know, it gave me a career, you know, it was like, even though I like did, I did my best to sabotage it and end it after Blair Witch, or like, you know, definitely tried to snuff it out for whatever reason, for many reasons. You know, it still persevered. Like the heat from Blair Witch still is alive today. I'm talking to you all because of the Blair Witch. It gave me, you know, a good career as an indie filmmaker, and then it gave me the opportunity to move into television and you know, especially in television and film too. But like, just I've done so much television that like it's just really like made me like just develop my directing chops so much, you know, and it's allowed, and it's all because of Blair Witch, you know, like Robert Rodriguez gave me an opportunity to work on his show Dusk Till Dawn because of Blair Witch, you know what I mean? So, and you know, and again, like, and I look back and it, you know, ties into the last question, which that, you know, that I realized that I was just a part of it. You know, I definitely brought a lot of good ideas, and I think, you know, I definitely, you know, helped, you know, carve this movie, you know, and I definitely was part of the creative process, you know, one of the top, you know, in you know, I was one of the important kind of visions, let's say, bringing it forward, but it was definitely a collaborative, you know, effort, you know, based on a lot of people putting, you know, their visions and their efforts into it. So I feel like really blessed and lucky that I was, you know, that I, you know, found this little spark, and Dan and I found this spark together. And then, you know, everybody started, you know, being, you know, they loved the spark, and we kind of had brought it to life and kept it. Sometimes it was gone, and then we'd bring it back to life, and this little flame, you know, and, you know, and a lot of people ask me like, you know, aren't you tired of talking about Blair Witch? And I'm like, I mean, how could I be tired of? I mean, if you want to talk to me about Blair Witch, then why would I not want to talk to you about Blair Witch? You know, so that's my whole thing, is that like, and I get approached all the time on set and stuff, you know, about like, you know, are you cool talking about Blair Witch? And I'm like, dude, of course I'm cool talking about Blair. I mean, why wouldn't I? So, you know, and I love that, like, that's, you know, I get this great energy when I go on sets of the, you know, TV shows where like, you know, that reputation precedes me, and you know, it's just good to have something where, okay, at least people know that I've done something. And then when people come to me and like, oh my God, you know, I got there, you know, everybody has a Blair Witch story. I love to hear that, the Blair Witch stories, you know. So I never thought in a million years that I would be associated with a movie that, you know, people were still so, you know, that people loved so much. And also people hate, other people hate it a lot too, but I never thought I would be,
but I don't care about them.
Yeah, so. No, I mean, it's a polarizing movie. I mean, look, it was, I've always told people, it's like, it was a totally experimental film that somehow made a crazy amount of money. You know, like experimental films are not for everybody. No. They're not for everybody.
No, they're not.
You know, people, you know, there's a certain percentage of the audience that, you know, just likes normal, you know, movies, and don't, you know, a lot of people don't like to be challenged. But I think for us, it was like, you know, the people that do like challenged, you know, talent to be challenged in the theater and kind of see new things, you know, we knew that there was an audience for it. We just didn't think it was going to do that well. You know, we hoped that it was going to be like, you know, that we would get like a cable deal. Like we were like, oh my God, imagine if HBO buys us. You know, we never thought it was I mean, if we had any kind of, you know, idea that it was going to go theatrical, we wouldn't have made it as shaky as it was. Like, because I suffer from motion sickness, you know, too. So
see, that didn't bother me.
I would have never
so
put
many
myself
people
through
are
that.
messed up from it.
Oh yeah, man. I always tell people, I'm like, you know, if you can avoid it, do not sit near the screen during Blair Witch. Like, it's just not going to be fun for you.
Right.
Got to sit back, and I'll go, like whenever I do a show or a screening of it, we would always sit in the way back. So, but
like
you know,
that, I need my eye on the edge.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and also just like, you know, there was a lot of people vomiting in theaters, and it's just like,
yes,
we didn't
heard about this.
We didn't want that to happen. That wasn't like a you know, a thing that we did on purpose, you know.
Yeah.
Not at all. So, I mean, you used these tools at the time. You were able to use the digital cameras. You had Avid to cut this. You used technology. The internet was there to make the website. You just had so many good things happening for you. Perfect storm of stuff, right? And everything you say right there is incredibly inspirational. Tara's making great stuff. I'm always making my stuff. And to see you guys to do this with no money and just for fun, to make it what it is, inspires people like us, and to go and do this stuff, like go and do it. Yeah. And I mean, you made a dream come true, and I think it's amazing. And for me to sit here, I say this to all our guests, thank you for being on, but seriously, thank you for being on, because I love this film. And this is an hour that I really am super happy that you were able to talk to us about.
Yeah, no, it was great.
Tara,
Thanks
you
for
have anything
having
else
me.
you want to ask?
No, I mean, well, Tara, yeah, you can ask, but thanks for having me. I mean, it was, that's inspiring other filmmakers is like, that's really the top of the, the cherry on the cake, on the icing. Like, it's really like, the icing on the cake, like it really, that's really what it's all about. You know what I mean? And I'm so, I'm so happy when I hear things that, because I mean, for us, it was like, all right, if we can do it, anybody can do it. You know what I mean? And I'm so happy that I inspired that, because people like Kevin Smith and Spike Lee and Steven Soderbergh, like early on, early independent guys, really, Robert Rodriguez, like really, showed me that, hey, you can do it. You know what I mean? And, it's great to have that same inspiration to other people,
Soderbergh did that great movie. I can't remember exactly when it was from, but Bubble, where he was using non-actors for the whole thing. And it's so affecting. It's really cool.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like Soderbergh is one of these guys that just continues to, experiment, and he it seems like he works in every genre. He's very impressive.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Ed, where can folks find you? Social media, websites, and all that good stuff, and to see what you're up to.
I'm on Instagram and Twitter or X, whatever the hell it's called, and just Sanchez on the mic. And then
Threads.
my Facebook is Hacks and Films is the group that I usually am check every day, and you can kind of keep in touch with what I'm doing on that. But otherwise, I don't do the social media thing too much. I do as much as I can. I mean, I love interacting. That's why the Hackson site I love so much, and also the Blair Witch Project site. I love interacting with the fans, but a lot of the other stuff kind of just gets on my nerves,
You can. Tara, thank you for being on again. Of course, we love it.
Thanks,
and
Tara.
Where does everybody find you? Of course.
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. Those are my main ones now. At Terracotta Films.
Love it. And you guys obviously know where to find us. We're at Scary Movie Project, gmail.com. We do Facebook, we do Instagram as well, social media out there. Thank you, seriously, guys, both. Again, Ed, thank you so much. This is awesome.
Sure.
And we will
Thanks for having
see you
me.
Guys next time.
Peace out.
Next time, for sure.
The Scary Movie Project podcast. Learn more at thescarymovieproject.com.